Hey everyone! So it's time to talk about a post commentary. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, and I promise that's not just because they're no longer members only. I just haven't really been making as many videos and about other stuff going on. So I haven't really found one that hit a topic that I really cared to really cover in this much detail until now, as you can see. I know I did another Moonlight video before that was also like 95% edited by me, but honestly that video had a lot of limitations. Mainly the fact that I really could only work with whatever the cast had. With this video, I had not only a cast, but also 4 POVs I could be able to work off of. So that gave me a lot more to use when it came to what I wanted to do with this video. If anything, this video is directly a follow-up to the NA League video. If you were to place these on a theoretical timeline, this literally just comes right after that video, which I think makes it really interesting, as it was a way I could use, directly improving from that format. For that video, it took me about 1 week to edit about 40 minutes of gameplay. This time it took me two weeks to edit about 20. So yeah, I'm working about a fourth the speed. So yeah, part of that's being busy, but part of it is I really wanted to make this video good. And considering Raiders news happened right after this week happened, where I was making this video, it wasn't going to be the upload that weekend anyway. 2 Raiders videos was always going to be the highest priority. So that said, I want to go through and talk just a little bit about the process and thoughts I have on doing this video. The first one being, I wanted to have the intro be a bit more snappy. The original intro is quite a long introduction to Moonlight and their goals for this tournament, and I think it flows fine, but for a follow-up video like this, and one that's a bit shorter, I wanted to jump into the action right away. And that's where a lot of this intro comes from. I have a song that has basically a kind of build-up beat in the background here, this entire time, and I go through pretty much the fast history of everything from the NA League onward. In terms of an actual timeline again, this is basically a 4-month time skip to this tournament. There is other stuff that Moonlight did in between, but not really much of anything. Same for other top teams. And the stuff that did happen in that period it felt like it had a lot of rust between the changes in 11.0 and teams not playing the game as much. This was the first time people were really preparing for a big event like this, at least one that Moonlight was doing. So I felt this was kind of the most adequate place to, start out where things were going. The first game's a pretty simple music montage that I don't really have too much to. Again, it felt the need to open the video with a bit more action and a bit of a set piece, right? So I wanted this to be a little bit more eventful with whatever was going on. YouTube's been extremely laggy lately. Alright, there we go. But the main part of this video that makes it different from the other ones, and I don't know if the volume will be too loud or not, is during the pacing of this video, I also need to go over and explain Moonlight's comp change, because that's really the only main difference between this. Other than that, it's just a rematch, but it's how our comp strategy has changed. So the things that I needed to talk about were things that the fact that we were going to use this comp rather than using a variety of ones, and why each person was using the weapons, the overall sustained playstyle, and then tower control counter picks became an important thing to talk about, and how Milky Way uses a lot of the same maps as us. I felt like I hit a lot of those beats in the video, but it was spaced out throughout it. There's not as much in the beginning, and that's kind of for one simple reason. I can mention a few things between this game and this game, but Mako Turf War is a game that I'm mostly going to skip, and I'll talk about that in a second. But that leads to this, intro style thing where I go through and talk about the differences between each point. I decided to skip over Mako Turf War for one pretty simple reason. Mako Turf War games were boring. Now, when I edited this set, I wanted to have the pacing be a lot better, because I think the pacing is ultimately the largest flaw in the NA League video I did prior. There is a lot that goes on in that video, but all the sets get pretty much equal showtime. Some of them go slightly faster than others, like the Duck Motif is 3 games over the course of one decently long song. But for the most part, each game is shown as pretty much the same format over and over again. The two sets that really stand out from this entire thing is FTW, due to the rivalry and intense sets between it, and Fo due to the fact that we have that really long 8-minute Urchin game to make it stand out, and the unique comp change that we had to do against them. Those are the best part of the video by a good margin, because those sets have the most story behind them. The other sets were an important story to tell, but not all of them should have gotten as much spotlight or time as they did. Every match got a lot of importance to it. I'm fine with how that video came out, obviously. It's still an impressive endeavor, especially given it was made in 1 week, largely made by me, with 40 minutes of the video being my own editing. But at the end of the day, I wanted this to be a little bit better, and this set being a smaller scale gave me a good chance to test out different pacing things. It also was a good chance for me to test out Uma music in case it gets copyright strike to hell, but we'll see. because I have a lot of songs from that I do actually kind of want to use. So I threw 3 of them in for this video because they work quite well with this. The only thing I'll say about the Uma music, since that music is designed with having commentary over, horse racing while that song is being played, it actually lends a really good feeling to the songs being played over team comms or other forms of commentary. So there's very little times where I have where I have the music and nothing else. And I think that actually flowed a lot better for this video. There weren't really a whole lot of sections that had a lot of multi-kills or other moments where I felt the music worked better. Like, for example, I think the music really fit the intense nature of that last 2 minutes on Mako, and it had like a good bit of kill streaks and intense moments to keep it going. This set didn't really have as much of that. Anyway, the tower control counter pick was there, and I do like this song transition point as well. Power push. But Milky Way was not going to let that go quite easily. This team is very willing to play all parts of this. But I like that part. This game largely centered around Omega, and I don't have a whole lot to say about it. The segment works quite well for what it is. It's a tower control game where we hold out for a little bit. I subtitled a little bit of comms for, I think, the only time this video that I do it, because there just wasn't really another point, and I didn't know that at that part I was editing the video. Crab Leg became another game where I realized pacing-wise there could be improvements, because, again, the first 4 minutes of this game are just us holding advantage but not scoring. So I could show those in the background while talking about the fact that we held that advantage and trust the fact that the audience knows that, yeah, that's what happened. I don't need to show or meticulously go through every moment. And this wasn't a game where there was enough tension to really hold a lot of weight with these pushes. They fit just fine as background footage, and it allowed the game to progress in a way to where the set really took over when it was time. So again, it's a small pacing thing, but that's what a lot of this post-commentary is going to be about, how I improved and changed that kind of pacing all the way. I wish I had a better shot for this, by the way. It would be cool if the bracket was shown on stream in the really cool way, and I think they do sometimes, but none that really lined up for the shot. Originally, I used the song for Game 9 when editing this video, and it wasn't until about halfway through that I realized it really didn't fit. Game 9's song is a lot more hopeful, and generally probably the most intense song in the video, I want to say. So it fit a lot better when we were having the best game in the actual tournament, where we had a lot of good moments. Not as much an individual pop-off or anything, nothing in that game that I highlight as more than a double, but more the sense of coordination that we had, and ability to work together in a way that really, showcased that. So that was meant to be a showcase of that. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself for when I get to that, though, so I'll talk about that more a bit later. But this was a good chance to highlight Nolan with the Vacuum 96, like I talked about over here. And the main thing I wanted to do as well is have the ending be a little bit more ambiguous as to how it might turn out, which is why I keep the upbeat, hopeful part of the song going rather than contrast it with anything else, because it really does seem like a comeback might be possible, and it plays really well with the kind of kill streak that we get at the end and the possibility of pushing the Rainmaker back. The other thing I'm proud of with the shot, and you'll probably notice it throughout the video, is I do a lot more camera work. I do still try to prioritize syncing up songs to the music as best I can, like the clips that are happening in the gameplay, and that happens even with this camera work, but I try to prioritize a lot more of switching between the different point of views in this tournament, and showcasing like swapping between multiple people, or even having a few overhead shots, like Game 1 following that ink vacuum, for instance, where you see where the Rainmaker's in the corner. I wanted it to be a lot more dynamic. It's also really interesting to think about this, but our set against NME, given it is mostly fo, would have probably been something that would have been its own like segment earlier. But given the history of how the last tournament went for us in the position that we're in as a team, this is no longer something that's entirely worth highlighting. It could have still turned into an interesting video, because there were still interesting moments in this set. But I think keeping it on the focus of this team, the best in North America with Milky Way, allowed us to keep it a lot more focused, and it meant that the goal of the video and the branding of it also got to stay a lot more strict. So instead being able to just offhand mention it and show a few clips from this set was also pretty good. The second Mahi game plays most similar to the first one, just with a little bit more description of what Shadow's doing and Tri-Slosher's role with the team. So this isn't really a game where I have too much to talk about. It does have a little bit more set pieces though. So that's kind of interesting. And I think the ending bit where I switch between all the point of views was actually really well done. And I also, of course, like this moment that I got to highlight with Omega. I tried to sync up the zone flip to the music as best I could here. And with this new comp, it's not... But a little bit of commentary with the comp, a little bit of music stuff, and it transitions into the very end of the game very well. By the way, the last line I have about Shadow, if it sounds like it's cut off, it's because it is. Originally I was going to say more, but pacing-wise it worked much better to just cut to the clip and see what was happening next. I also tried to use any commentator clips of them talking about our comp, so it's not just me talking about it over and over to break up some of that monotony. So that's what some of these clips are. It's times where the commentators are talking over it, and I also tried to overlay footage over them talking about the comp rather than just using their face cams, just so that there's a little bit more action on the screen or potentially a demonstration of what I'm talking about. Outside of briefly mentioning the comp changes and showing a little bit more clips than the last time, Mako was skipped once again, and I actually had no idea how to handle crab-leg tower control at all. Given it was the most one-sided game, it was pretty clear that it should probably be mostly skipped, but I wasn't really sure a way to do that in the best way possible, especially since we just skipped over Mako Mart last time and I didn't want it to be repetitive. So instead it turned into a death montage. So maybe this will be better. I haven't done this in one of these videos, so I figured it's a good way to break up the pacing a little bit. It's kind of funny, and it's a good way to show through the game just at how one-sided and bad it was. So this is still technically a skip, but I think it's done in a way to where it's still engaging and kind of funny. After that was the best music montage and probably the best game edit of the entire video. This one took a long time to make, and I think that's also something we're talking about here. These videos take a while to edit. At minimum, with this tournament, I'm watching 5 point of views all the way through. And this includes between the games as well, as I'm listening for commentary from the team or something from the cast, which means from at least one team POV and one cast, I'm also watching everything between the games, which can oftentimes be as long as matches themselves. Given that this tournament set and the other tournament set were about an hour each, and about 40 minutes of it was cut just to the games, you can put in your head that that's going to be, like, at minimum 5 hours, if not much longer, or sorry, minimum 10, no, it is 5. Minimum 5 hours or so, just to comb through everything. That's not counting the time it takes to clip out everything or put it together or any of that sort. That definitely takes a lot of time. When working on the video that comes after this, that's actually the part I've been doing primarily. I haven't really started on many of the edits, though I've laid out a few songs in places I would like to. I've mostly just been trimming clips so that I can have the more enjoyable part of the video later. And I did that as early as January before I even worked on the other Moonlight video about the competitive ladder. That said, this video is the best showcase of my camera work changes and being able to have editing with the pacing. And it also especially fit the theme with this game, since the whole idea is that this was our best sense of coordination. Our comms, ability to work together and make plays, were all really good. We overlap switching different POVs a lot of the time and different plays from them. There's also one really cool thing I do here, and I'm not going to play the music because if it wasn't obvious, I'm still worried about the copyright claim, so I'm not going to risk this video and the main channel video at the same time, because I'm recording this before the main channel video even goes to live. But at this part of the game, if you watch it back on the main channel video, you can hear comms for this segment that Shadow does, but if you pay attention to the time at the top, we go back and play over pretty much the exact same segment when Basil's point of view is here. This actually happens a few times in the tournament, and I would cut which comms got played at these points to make it look like it was two separate sets of conversations, when in reality all these comms were happening at the same time. This was something that I wasn't sure I was ever going to do, but I wanted to when it came to this video. I think it ended up looking better. Same for the idea where I transitioned between one person to another very rapidly when a set of kills happened, rather than gave time to see their POV before it happened. It was something that I felt looked better than just doing a cut back to the person like 2 seconds earlier. Sometimes it just does look better to have that fluid camera movement over another crossfade. And since, crossfading between POVs is the main thing I have to do here, I think that using the in-game camera for shots really does help out quite a lot. This is the last real note I have, but when going back and looking at stuff, between games, like this is just footage of this game that we already watched, I tried to use a POV or shot that wasn't done before. Obviously that isn't true all the time, like in the background for this case is them talking about vacuum coordination, which originally I had this segment happen during the game itself, but it didn't really mesh well with the whole music montage that we had going here, since these clips are spread out throughout the match, and instead here they can be, in one segment. So I felt like it wasn't too much of a pace break, and talking about vacuum was really the only thing that wasn't properly covered, and that was something that I got feedback for when talking with Veckel about it, who is the person that I have going through a lot of these videos that I'm making and helping proofread it with me. So there needed to be a point where vacuum was mentioned. This is the last game of the video, and I don't have too much to say about it, but there is some interesting stories here. For one thing, it took me 2 hours to find a song for this segment. I needed a decent lead-in one that had enough tension going on, without it being as intense as the other song. I needed it to cool down for a bit so I could talk and bring out nerves that barely lasted very long, and then I need another set that conveyed, well, things falling apart as 3 sets of vacuums are used at the same time. So I needed to fulfill all those requirements in one song and have it fit with the overall pacing of the match. Luckily, I eventually found one. There were, in fact, a few Risk of Rain songs, so maybe some of the other ones would have worked best. I did kind of realize after the first hour or so that that soundtrack would probably be the best for it, but this one worked just absolutely perfectly. I'm very proud of how this came out, and the game looks very good. The final thing to really talk about is the end of the video. Should I have done some kind of larger analysis afterward? I decided not to for a few reasons. First of all, when it came to the video I did just previously in this series, I did have like a 2-minute video going over the entire thing. Secondly, I felt there wasn't too much to talk about. There were other sets that we made in prior games, but for the most part, this is a debut of the weapon comp, something we haven't ran in tournament before, and a lot of our problems come from the fact that it's new. We don't have as many maps we feel comfortable counterpicking to. I mean, even Clan Blitz on Ship Shape was something we didn't run in practice at all. And nerves ended up getting to us on the last game. So I think instead reiterating that we were going to use this comp as like a single comp, whereas our other comps are one we swap between with like the Pen Mini versus Leader Zap, and talking about how it's a good proof of concept with the future for the potential for the future was a good way to go about it. It also meant that I didn't have any other song after the main one. I just cut to the normal outro music, which is the first time I think that's happened in quite a while. So yeah, that's about all my thoughts on the Moonlight video. I was really happy with how this came out, really. I think I improved quite a lot, and while I still have a ways to go with this format, I think it was really good to have all the POVs and be able to test myself like this. And it's also nice timeline-wise to have things caught up. I guess I'll give a little bit of a preview on the Moonlight video before this. This is our second best tournament run that we've ever had, technically, just going by the amount of teams that we managed to beat. It's also a pretty interesting story because it happens on a random weekly rather than any sort of major event that happens. So it's one that features a lot of sets. And like I've talked about before, the reason I delayed that video back and did the other one first is the fact that it felt a little bit repetitive with the losers run back compared to the initial NA League video. Hopefully by now enough time has passed to where that's the case. To be honest, life is really busy for me right now, so I have no idea what my availability is going to look like. Initially, I really wanted to get this next video out before NA League Finals, just so that story was there before whatever else could happen by the time we get over there. However, I have no idea, given that a bunch of stuff propped up and then I ended up spending 2 weeks on this video, if I'll have enough time to finish it or not. I'm not close enough time frame wise to really gauge if I'll be able to make that happen or not, and there's a few things that I need to figure out later down the line timeline wise. That said, hopefully that'll come out at some point. We'll have to see, and I'm hoping I can get it out before NA League if I'm lucky enough. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this. I'm really happy making this series. It's not the most popular one on my channel by any means, but I hope people check it out. It's a format that I'm really happy and proud of. I also just realized that I didn't have my little icon in the corner. There it is. Alright, bye.